Hey guys, welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube, and welcome to part one of my 6,000 subscriber Q&A series. Lots of great questions. I am not taking these in any order, so if your question is not answered in this particular video, that means it's going to be answered in a subsequent sequel to this particular series. As you guys are aware, it would be impossible for me to just turn the camera on and answer every single question I get in one upload. It would be like a 3 or 4 hour video. So I do break these Q&A series up. I also like to upload original content in between. So with that being said, we're going to dive right in. First question. Sean, in some of your videos, you talk about how once third-party grading was introduced into the comic book marketplace, that the only issues that became worth investing in over the long term, with few exceptions, were the key issues. Do you think a similar thing will happen within the graded video game marketplace? The answer is yes. All these markets work in similar fashion, especially when we talk about third-party graded collectibles. If we go back to how third-party grading transformed the rare coin marketplace back in the 1980s with the advent of NGC and PCGS, most investors, most collectors, speculators, and dealers were starting to shift focus to rare key date coins, low mintage coins, historically significant coins, scarce coins, rather than going after just your run-of-the-mill 1922 or 1923 piece dollars. Now, to be fair, if you were a collector on a limited budget and you just wanted to put together some type of US coin type set, meaning you wanted to get just one coin of every type of denomination, every type of series that was ever minted, yes, you may opt for the lesser value coins if that's what you were going to do. But over the long term, if we go back and we assess the price history and a price appreciation of those particular collectibles, the people who made out the most were the ones that were going after key date issues, scarce issues, low mintage issues, and historically significant coins. When comic grading premiered in the early 2000s with the advent of CGC, Comics Guarantee Corporation, there for a little bit, collectors and dealers thought, okay, there's going to be some people that are probably going to be interested in putting together a full graded run of Tomb of Dracula comic books or X-Men comic books or Batman or Werewolf by Night. And yes, there are some people still trying to do that, but it's very rare when compared to people that are going after coveted key issues. For instance, if you're going to collect Tomb of Dracula comic books, most likely, most people that are going to get involved in that market, they're going to want the first issue and they're going to want issue 10 because that's the issue that features the first appearance of Blade the Vampire Slayer. It's no different if we look at Werewolf by Night 32. Obviously, the most valuable book in that run is Werewolf by Night 32 because it's the first appearance of Moon Knight. So all these markets for graded collectibles end up going in that trajectory. Even if you look at Magic the Gathering right now, what's the most coveted Magic the Gathering card you can own? A graded Alpha Edition Black Lotus. That's not done by accident. Collectors see that as a key coveted card. That's the card that they want to go after. It's no different if we look at vintage Pokemon. The first edition holofoil Charizard card. That's what everybody wants in their collection. That's why those cards are so valuable. So all these markets work in the same manner when we analyze them over the long term. If you want to talk graded video games, yes, graded video games are going to end up going in that same trajectory. But I would caution you, if you are investing in that market, just understand it has a lot of risks at present time. That's all I'm going to say. Next question. Sean, could you do a limited run games update and your thoughts on their future? Yes, I actually have this planned. It'll probably still be a couple of months before you see the video, but it's been a while since I talked about limited run games. Full disclosure, I am a huge fan of the products that limited run games produces. They make a fantastic product. If you are somebody in the market who wants to get a hold of physical copies of those games, or you want to play those games, by all means, go after what limited run produces. My problem with the market as a whole is there's too many speculators in that market thinking that just because they made 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 copies of a certain game, it's going to automatically have value in the future simply because it is quote unquote rare. Markets in the antiques and collectibles trade need to have organic collectability. Limited run games makes a spectacular product, but most, not all of their products, are more on the side of mass-produced scarcity, meaning their long-term collectability is limited. Now, you can speculate in those games, meaning if you want to place an order for the latest limited run game and you're able to get 2 or 3 copies and you want to flip some of them into the secondary market, you can make money doing it depending on what the game is. But over the long term, in most cases, I would not be investing in their products with the hope that 10, 20, 30 years from now, you're going to be able to sell one of their games for $10, $20, $30,000. That's a pipe dream. That's what I want to state about that market. Now, I do think that limited run games is actually going to benefit more highly when a lot of the newer video game systems go digital only, because they're going to do what they're doing right now. They're going to release a lot of limited versions of these games, except on earlier consoles. So if you go on their website, you can see they're already producing vintage Nintendo games. They're already producing Game Boy games. They're already re-releasing Nintendo 64, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4 versions. They're going to keep doing that in the future. So that way, when the whole video game marketplace shifts to digital distribution, they will still have a viable business. And a lot of collectors, a lot of enthusiasts, will still buy their products. So I think that's very smart of them. I have nothing against the company. Again, I think they make a great product. My problem is the mindset of the speculators that are attracted to the products they produce for all the wrong reasons. I'm going to leave it there. You guys can go back and watch some of my earlier videos about that topic if you want me to expand on that. Next question. Hey, Sean, I love how non-emotional you are about the value of collectibles. Question. What are your long-term investment thoughts on actual numbered, limited edition Walt Disney Park products and collectibles, especially those related to popular rides like the Haunted Mansion, Pirates of the Caribbean, It's a Small World, and the like? I did add It's the Small World there. He actually didn't say that. It just happens to be one of my favorite rides as a kid, that and Space Mountain. So I want to answer this question in full because it is a good question. There is a category in the antiques and collectibles trade that is called Disneyana. Disneyana is devoted to collecting anything vintage and Disney related. Now, when I say Disney here, guys, you got to understand, I'm talking about items and collectibles that were predominantly released before the 1980s. So we're talking Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, Pluto, Goofy, Captain Emo, Figment, if you remember any of those characters, anything related to the vintage animated films and the like. It does not include Marvel Comics and or Star Wars. You know, I keep hearing people think that just because there's a lot of Disney collectors out there, that means that a lot of those Disney collectors are going to go after Marvel Comics and Star Wars action figures and collectibles simply because Disney owns Marvel Comics and Star Wars at present time. Most Disneyana collectors are hardcore Disney aficionados, meaning they're going after the vintage Disney stuff. They have no interest in any of the businesses or any of the properties that Disney bought along the way. They want true Disney collectibles. Now, you ask about this market. This is a very established market in the trade. The thing that I will tell you is, be very careful if you are going after some of the more eccentric collectibles that are coming out of this market. For instance, I saw on one of the collecting shows, I forget which one it was, somebody had purchased an original boat from the It's a Small World ride, and they paid something like $40,000 for it because it is authenticated that it came from Walt Disney World, and as a result, it has a lot of value on the secondary market. The problem with that is, very few collectors out there are going to buy an item like that and display it in their house. They're not going to have the money or the means to do so. So as long as you buy smart and you go after items that are practical and also highly collectible, you can do well in this market. Just use your head if you're going to try to invest in this stuff. This stuff is very established. There's a lot of collectors in this market. Again, the market for Disneyana, which, again, generally predates 1980s, guys. So just keep that in mind. But yes, it is a viable market in the trade. Next question. Sean, Can you please share more insight on how to properly store collectibles at home, particularly for graded comics, coins, and cards? Thank you and congrats on the 6,000 subscribers. Yes, I am going to do more videos in that particular series. I did do some videos on storage. I did do some videos on insurance as it relates to the antiques and collectibles trade. I have not gotten around to doing home storage, the pros and cons, what to look for if you are buying a home safe. I plan to do more videos in that realm. It's just going to take me some time to circle back around to that particular topic. For those unaware, I try to break up the content on this channel. So if I put out video after video on one talking point, I start to lose my core audience. They get a little bit bored with me, even if they are fascinated with that talking point. So I break up a lot of the content that I produce on this channel. For instance, I talk an awful lot about the fundamentals of investing in antiques and collectibles. I'll do some videos on that. Then I'll go and I'll talk about storage, or I'll talk about insurance, or I'll give you a market update on what's happening in graded video games, or rare coins, or comic books, or movie posters. I do like to switch around a lot of the content that I produce for this channel because I don't want to become too predictable, and I certainly don't want to become too boring. So I hope that helps. But yes, we will be doing more videos on that, rest assured. It may be a couple of months until they premiere on this channel, but they are in the planning stages right now, I promise you. Next question. Sean, would you ever have Harry Rinker on your channel? Thanks in advance for the response. Yes, I would. I have been exchanging emails back and forth with Mr. Rinker. He knows that I am a fan of his work. He knows that his work did influence me as a young child starting out in the trade. One of the things that I will tell you about Harry is two things at least. Number one, he is getting ready to retire, I think, at the end of this year from the way that I understand it, which I consider that to be a tremendous loss to the overall antiques and collectibles trade, especially in the year 2021, when we have everybody promoting the top 5 comic books, the top 5 trading cards, the top 5 coins, the top 5 pieces of art that you should be investing in for the long term. I think that Harry Rinker brings a tremendous sense of balance and stability to the antiques and collectibles trade, and he will be missed. I will also tell you that Harry Rinker is much more bearish than I am. As a matter of fact, I would venture to say that Harry Rinker is probably very critical of my work because one of the things that I do on this channel is I actually teach people the fundamentals as to how these markets work. And then if they so desire, I tell them, okay, you can invest in these markets, but these are the risks. These are the possible rewards. And I do know that Harry Rinker, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he is not sold on the investment aspect of most antiques and collectibles when compared to traditional assets like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, and the like. That is why I would love to interview him. Again, I did send an email to him about that. We have corresponded before in the past. Those of you that watch this channel on a regular basis, you do know I did go over some emails and his response to my emails early on in this channel. And I would hope to get his insight on other topics in the greater antiques and collectibles trade. So I'll leave it like that. If you guys want me to do an interview with Harry Rinker, you can simply email him. He does have his email address on his website, and just say, hey, you know, this guy Sean with Reserved Investments that you've corresponded to before, who writes for Antiques and Auction News, would like to interview you. We, as fans of both you guys, would like to see something like that materialize, and maybe Harry Rinker will agree to do it. That would be great. Next question. Sean, do you prefer to invest more in books that are culturally significant, like Harry Potter, or those that are read in school, like Of Mice and Men? I'm going to read this question again because I want you guys to hear how this person worded it. Before we go any further, I'm not cutting this person up. A lot of you guys, I don't think, realize how your mind operates, and that's what I want to get you to listen to when I read this question again. Sean, do you prefer to invest more in books that are culturally significant, like Harry Potter, or those that are read in school, like Of Mice or Men? Now, do you want to know how I would word this question if I was answering it, or asking it, I should say? Sean, do you prefer to invest more in books that are culturally significant, like Of Mice and Men, or books that are popular right now, like Harry Potter? So where I'm going with this is the way that you worded this question is 100% loaded. So I'm going to give you my answer, but you may not like my answer. Of Mice and Men is almost 100 years old at present time. Maybe it is. It is a John Steinbeck classic. If we want to look at the price history of that book, we can literally go back decades and chart the price of that book, and you can see it exponentially rise and become more valuable over time. Harry Potter is only what? Roughly 20 years old at present time. We don't know that Harry Potter is going to remain culturally significant going forward. Now, we can guess, yes, obviously there's a lot of people that are attracted to the Harry Potter franchise and also the Harry Potter books. So when we look at it from a question of cultural relevance, yes, Harry Potter at present time has cultural relevance, but it is not comparable to that of Mice and Men. So if I was going to invest in a book, I would go after Of Mice and Men, a first edition copy of The Great Gatsby, Great Expectations, Ethan Frome, A Picture of Dorian Gray. All those books have achieved cult status and are considered, I hate to use this word, but I'm going to use it, blue chip collectibles if you collect first edition books. Harry Potter, why now it's culturally significant, it is not on par with a lot of the literary classics, where back when they were published, very few people knew to even save first edition books back then. A couple of kooks did. That's why they are in existence. But overall, most people did not. When Harry Potter came on the scene, a lot of people were buying it. And also, they were very much involved in that particular universe that the author created. So I just want to state that. But yes, in my opinion, the money is with the literary classics, the proven literary classics, not Harry Potter. As much as I continue to believe Harry Potter, if you do have a first edition copy of that book, it will continue to go up in value. So I hope that answers your question. Next question. Sean, can you do a general investing video? You mentioned having 100,000 plus in investing before you getting into the collectible space. It would be great hearing your views on that area too. I am going to be doing more videos on traditional asset investing. If you guys recall, I did do several videos on that particular topic. They are floating around on this channel somewhere. I think one of the ones was on traditional asset classes, how to build wealth in a capitalistic society. There were some good talking points in those videos. Go back and watch them. But yes, we will be doing more videos on general investing. It just has to be something that I can put a unique spin on. I don't like regurgitating commentary from Dave Ramsey or Susie Orman or Graham Stephan or Meet Kevin or any of the other financial-minded YouTubers out there that already release material on that particular talking point. It has to be something that I can put my own unique spin on. A lot of you have been asking me to do a video still to this day on the GameStop phenomenon. The reason why I changed direction on that particular video is it got to the point where every YouTuber out there in the collectible space, in the video game space, in the finance space, did a video on what happened with GameStop stock and the short sale and the squeeze that resulted with a hedge fund nearly going bankrupt, to the point where if I would comment on it, I don't think it would be as interesting as some of the commentary that's already out there by and large on YouTube. So that's why I did not put that video out. It was not because it was controversial. It was not controversial by a long shot. I just felt it best for this particular channel that I don't comment on something that every other YouTuber already commented on to death. Next question. Hey, Sean, thoughts on graded copies of Nintendo Power Magazine? If you're going after a first issue, yes. Anything else, I honestly don't like it. I'm going to be very honest. I don't see people going after a full run of graded Nintendo Power magazines. Just like I don't see people or collectors in this day and age, as I answered before in this Q&A series, going after a full graded run of Tomb of Dracula or Werewolf by Night comic books. So to each their own. I will tell you, obviously, the first issue in as best condition as you can afford is probably going to be a blue chip collectible along with vintage Nintendo advertising. Those are the markets that I like. The games can easily be emulated. A lot of people own copies of the games. Go after the advertising. Go after the other stuff that most people did not save, like your Nintendo Power fan clubs, magazines, stuff like that. That's the stuff that's going to have value. So I hope that answers your question. Sean, Any thoughts on air guns or cartridges and ammo collecting or investing? Hey, kid, you'll shoot your eye out. No, in all seriousness, Daisy BB guns were a thing back in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. That collectible market pretty much started to mellow out as older baby boomers and such that were operating in that market started to get out of it, or they started to, I hate to say this, die off. Today, I do not like the market for BB guns. I do not like this market by and large. If you are going to collect guns, my friend, go after real guns, culturally significant and historic weapons, artifacts. You can even go after edge weapons if you want, or of course, guns that go boom. That's the stuff that you should be collecting. Not air guns, not air rifles. That market is much too niche. There's a lot of people, though, that do collect guns from either the antique or vintage era, or even, of course, modern guns. For instance, those markets are on fire right now. So that would be the market that I would steer you towards. Of course, you didn't tell me your age, and I also don't know if you are able to collect those items for whatever reason. But regardless, that's the market that you should be operating in if you have a thing for weapons and guns. Go after the real thing. Go after historically significant weapons, and you will always have a market to sell to. I just want to state that. Next question. Hey, Sean, how does the antiques and collectibles market behave when there is a recession or a depression? As we're seeing, it depends on the actions of the government. If the government starts to print unlimited money, guess what? You have a market in a frenzy due to hyperinflation and inflation taking hold. If the government does nothing like they did in 2008, 2009, and instead decide to give all the money to billionaires and corporations and bail out the banks, guess what happens? You have upper end inflation. You have people going after very valuable pieces of real estate, fine art, certain luxury collectibles. All that stuff rises in value, while certain other collectibles drop in value. So it just depends on the current economic environment and the actions of the government by and large that are occurring when there is a recession or depression. On average, I will tell you, most collectible categories in a normal depression and or recession will lose value. Most. There's a few that may be able to weather the storm. There's others that may lose a lot, meaning they may fall 40, 50% in value, while the average market falls 10 to 20%. If we go back to what happened in 2008, 2009, it was a crapshoot. Certain markets only fell 10 to 20%. Other markets were completely obliterated to the point where they never even came back. I would honestly argue there were a lot of high-profile collectibles and even certain antiques that were transitioning at that time from either speculative markets to established markets, or from established markets to sophisticated, mature markets in the trade that fell through the cracks as a result of that recession because collectors no longer cared about those particular items because they couldn't put food on the table. So do with that information what you will. Again, guys, I've said this before. There is no crystal ball when you operate in these markets. These markets do not operate and work the way that you think they do. One of the statements that I hate that a lot of collectors bring to my attention all the time is, Sean, I'm going to be greedy when others are fearful. Now, to be fair, if you're investing in index funds, that's a great mantra to have. Index funds fall in value. You go and you throw money at them. When the market recorrects and that index fund goes back up in value, you're going to make some serious gains. The problem is, if you were being greedy when others were fearful, when Beanie Babies, when Pez dispensers, when Hummels were falling in value, hoping for a market pullback or comeback sometime in the future that never materialized, you lost your proverbial ass. And that's how I'm going to end part 1 of this wonderful Q&A series. Hope you're enjoying it thus far. Thanks, and have a great night.